Hello friends, so let us continue our discussion on understanding the failure of materials at high temperature. So in the previous lecture, when we introduced the failure of materials at high temperature, particularly during creep testing, we saw that the overall mechanism for the failure of the material, be it ambient temperature during a tensile loading condition or the varying loading condition, or a creep condition wherein you have a temperature that is considerably higher than the ambient temperature and the stress applied is constant, the overall mechanism for the failure of the material remains the same. Particularly at high temperature, you have a ductile mode of failure. We rarely have the brittle mode of failure. At high temperature, considering that we have a ductile mode of failure, when you compare that mode of failure to room temperature, we saw that the sequence of events that leads to the ductile failure of the material is the same. We begin with the formation of cavities, growth and coalescence of these cavities, which leads to the formation of cracks, and once these cracks are formed, they ultimately lead to the fracture or failure of the material. So all these sequence of events, they remain same for ductile failure at room temperature and ductile failure at high temperature, or rather failure in general at high temperature. And failure in general at high temperature is largely, it is ductile in nature, even under an adverse conditions like stress rupture. So these are the sequence of events that leads to the failure of materials during creep testing. Now, we began by considering the exclusive feature that characterizes the failure of material at high temperature. So one of the features is that the formation of cavities is heterogeneous and it is confined to the grain boundaries. So at high temperature, or the failure of material at high temperature, it begins with the formation or heterogeneous nucleation of cavities along the grain boundaries. So this means we are largely considering polycrystalline material. So this is something that I should have mentioned in the previous lecture. So what we are essentially talking about is we are talking about polycrystalline material, which is in most cases used in the application. So when you have a polycrystalline system, at high temperature, the formation of cavities is largely confined to the region that separates two different grains. Now, this formation of cavities, we saw in the previous lecture, or we introduced ourselves to one of the mechanisms that leads to the formation of cavities at the grain boundaries or along the grain boundaries. So that is, when you have a grain something like this, and you have tensile loading acting along this direction, because of the tensile loading, the activation energy that is required to the formation of vacancies is reduced by the tensile load that is acting. So this tensile load or the tensile stress that is acting, this reduces the amount of or the activation energy that is required for the formation of vacancies. So that means when compared to other places here, there will be an increased amount of vacancies. The NV here will be increased when compared to all the other regions. So in these two regions, the amount of vacancies will be increased. Now in most cases, you have a diffusion of vacancies from this increased region to the neighboring region. So this happens generally when you have an increased amount of vacancies because of the tensile loading condition, and here because of the Boson's effect, if you have a compressive loading condition or a condition that is similar to that of the compressive loading, then the number of vacancies here will be deficit, and therefore you would have a gradient that is gradient in the concentration of vacancies along this line here, and that means you would have the flow of vacancies governed by this gradient from this region here, that is the region where the tensile loading is acting, to the region wherein the compressive load is acting. Now when this diffusion is impeded, this could be caused by many reasons. Maybe the path is disturbed by the excessive amount of dislocation, or maybe you have an intergranular precipitates that are being formed. So if this diffusion is impeded, then the concentration or the increased concentration of vacancies in these grain boundaries will remain the same. So this increased concentration of vacancies, they ultimately lead to the formation of cavities. So once you have the once you have the vacancies forming or leading to the formation of cavities, since these vacancies are confined to the grain boundaries, you have the vacancies forming along we have the cavities forming along the grain boundaries. Now the reasons why we attribute the increased amount of vacancies to the grain boundaries is because the energy required for the formation of vacancy, when you compare it with the bulk along the grain boundaries, is already or is implicitly low, and this in addition to that you have tensile loading that is further lowering the energy required for the formation of vacancies. The combination of this already low amount of energy required for the formation of vacancies, and coupled to that we have the influence of stress, you would have an increased amount of vacancies along the grain boundaries, and coalescence of these vacancies leads to the formation of cavities. So this is one of the mechanism. This is just one of the mechanism that leads to the formation of cavities along the grain boundaries, which ultimately leads to the formation of cracks along the grain boundaries. This is just, like I said, one of the mechanisms. This is not the principal mechanism, but this is just one of the mechanisms. And the reason I began with this particular mechanism is because since we have discussed this in the context of this relation of stress on the formation of vacancies in the context of diffusion creep very recently, and because of our discussion or recent discussion on the diffusion creep, I introduced this particular mechanism first. The other mechanism that is responsible for the formation of the cavities along the grain boundary is the slip band mechanism. The other mechanism that ultimately leads to the formation of cavities along the grain boundaries is referred to as the slip band mechanism. Now, slip, as you might know, it is the phenomena that leads to the plastic deformation of the material, and this slip is confined to a particular plane along a particular direction, and this we refer to as the combination of these two we refer to as the slip system. So the migration of atoms or the movement of atoms due in response to the imposed loading condition is not random, but it is confined to a specific plane and direction, usually the closed back plane and the closed back direction. And when this propagation or when this movement of atom, when this deformation of atom along a specific plane and direction, it meets a obstacle. So this obstacle can be grain boundary or any particle. In most cases it is the grain boundary. When this propagation of the dislocation or when this slip that is occurring in a particular plane and the direction, it meets an obstacle, then the slip begins to accumulate or the dislocation begins to accumulate in this region. So you have a polycrystalline system, you introduce the plastic deformation, and this plastic deformation is progressing through slip, and we can translate this to the propagation of or the mobility of the dislocation. The dislocation continues to propagate till it meets the grain boundaries. Now we have seen that at high temperature the plasticity is enhanced by the rearrangement and annihilation of the dislocation. However, the grain boundaries and the sub-boundaries continues to increase during the creep behavior. So when these dislocation, the propagating dislocation, meet with the grain boundary, their mobility is impeded, and this, in addition to their mobility that is being impeded, you have an accumulation of stress. So what essentially happens is, when you have this grain boundaries or when this grain boundary is impeding the propagation of your dislocation that is consistently being produced, this leads to the accumulation of stress, and after a certain limit, this accumulation of stress, it leads to the nucleation of cavities. So essentially the factor that governs the nucleation of cavities along the grain boundaries is the accumulation of stress. stress. Now, since this accumulation of stress is brought about by the mobility of the dislocation being impeded, you have the cavity formation along the grain boundaries. Now, when compared to the mechanism wherein the increased amount of vacancies that leads to the formation of cavities along the grain boundaries, in this mechanism what happens is that we have the freely propagating dislocations along the slip system. It is being impeded by the grain boundaries, and this leads to the accumulation of stress, and this accumulation of stress beyond certain limits, it leads to the formation of cracks along the, or formation of cavities rather, along the grain boundaries. Now, it is possible that these dislocations might be impeded by any other factors or any other material feature or microscopic features other than the grain boundaries. It is also possible because of this obstacle that is caused by the microstructural feature, there might be the formation of cavities within the region. However, since the grain boundary is the obstacle that is largely faced by the dislocation, when you compare the dislocation interacting with other features, for instance, you might have a small precipitate, you might have other microstructural features like sinks or jogs. So apart from all these features, when you compare to the grain boundary, the frequency with which the dislocation made to the grain boundary is considerably high, particularly in the polycrystalline system. Therefore, the formation of cavities that results from this accumulation or the impingement of the dislocation to the grain boundaries is considerably high, and therefore we have the nucleation of cavities along the grain boundaries. So like I said, it is also possible for the dislocation to interact with a precipitate or certain other microstructural features. However, the amount of accumulation, sometimes it is possible that the dislocation might find a way to move around the precipitate. Sometimes the accumulation is not sufficient enough, or the piling up of the dislocation is not sufficient enough to initiate the cavities. These circumstances are achieved when the dislocation interact with the grain boundaries. You have sufficient amount of pileup, so that means you have sufficient amount of stress that is being accumulated, and the amount of interaction between the dislocation and the grain boundaries is considerably large when you compare the interaction between grain boundaries or dislocation and any other obstacle. And that is the reason why, even though there are possibility of nucleation of cavities because of this interaction between dislocation and obstacle, so even though there are possibility of other interaction between dislocation and obstacle that would lead to the formation of cavities, since the frequency of interaction between dislocation and grain boundary is large, and since the amount of pileup and the amount of accumulation stress that is required for the formation of cavities is generally achieved around the grain boundary, this phenomena is largely responsible for the formation of grain boundary cavities. So even though this can be achieved, or this can lead to the formation of intragranular cavities, given all these factors, that is the amount of frequencies the dislocation made with grain boundaries, and the amount of pileup that is possible, the amount of accumulation stress that is possible, this phenomena is largely responsible for the formation of cavities along the grain boundaries. Now, when you plot the strain exhibited by the material to that of the dislocation of, or rather the density of the cavities that you observe along the grain boundaries. So when you have in this x-axis, you have the strain, the creep strain exhibited by the material, and you have the density of cavities. So rho CAV is the density of cavities. Now, as the strain increases, the cavity also increases, or the density of cavities also increases, the amount of cavities also increases. So, as the creep strain increases, the density of the cavity also increases. So, this is reasonable because when we have plastic strain, we have increased density in the dislocation, and when you have increased density in dislocation, the possibility of interaction between the dislocation and the grain boundaries increases. And when this interaction occurs, there is a pileup of the dislocation. This pileup of the dislocation increases the accumulated stress along the grain boundaries, and this accumulated stress ultimately leads to the formation of cavities. Therefore, with increase in the creep strain, you have increase in the density of cavities. So this is one of the mechanism, or rather a dominant mechanism, that governs the formation of intragranular cavities. The other mechanism that leads to the formation of intergranular, or rather the intergranular cavities, is referred to as the grain boundary wedges mechanism. Grain boundary wedges mechanism. Now, in the previous mechanism, we saw that when you have a grain boundary and you have the propagating dislocations, it begins to meet or interact with this grain boundary here, and this leads to the accumulation of stress and ultimately the formation of vacancies. However, in this grain boundary wedges, what happens is, instead of this accumulation of stress leading to the formation of the cavities directly, it introduces a plastic deformation in the neighboring grain. So what happens is, when these dislocation meet the grain boundaries, it leads to the formation of plastic deformation in the neighboring grain through the formation of a step-like projection in the grain boundaries. So what happens is, when compared to the previous case, you have dislocations that interact with the grain boundaries, and immediately after sufficient interaction or sufficient pile-up and sufficient accumulation of stress, you have directly the formation of intergranular or we have cavities that is formed along the grain boundaries. So this is what we saw in the previous mechanism. However, in this mechanism, the dislocation, they begin to hit the grain boundary, they begin to interact with the grain boundaries. There is sufficient amount of dislocation densities or dislocation that pile up along the grain boundary. There is sufficient amount of accumulation of stress. However, instead of directly forming the cavities along the grain boundary, you have the introduction of stress or plastic deformation in the neighboring grain. So if you have grain, if you refer to this one as grain 1 and 2, the accumulation of stress due to the piling up of dislocation in grain 1 will introduce plastic deformation in grain 2 through the formation of a step-like structure. So initially the grain boundary was uniform in this manner, but due to the interaction of the piling up dislocation, you have a steps-like structure, and this step-like structure in the grain boundary is referred to as the grain boundary wedge. And this grain boundary wedge will lead to the formation or will induce a plastic deformation in the neighboring grain. This wedge, when accompanied by grain boundary sliding, when at high temperature, when the grain boundary sliding is introduced, you have your grain moving in this direction, and when you have your grain moving in this direction, this step or the ledge will also move due to the grain boundary sliding. This ledge will also move, and ultimately leading to the formation of cavities. So when this ledge moves because of the grain boundary sliding, you would have a region, and that region will be the precursor for the cavity. So what essentially happens in this grain boundary wedge mechanism is, you have a formation of step-like structure or the grain boundary wedge because of the piling up of the dislocation. The piling up of the dislocation, the accumulation of the stress leads to the formation of a grain boundary wedge. This grain boundary wedge, it relaxes the accumulated stress by inducing the plastic deformation in the neighboring grain. However, even though it relaxes the accumulated stress, even though it introduces the plastic strain in the neighboring grain, this microstructural feature, this feature of the grain boundary, it stays same. Now, when you have grain boundary sliding, the sliding event on this ledge leads to the formation of cavities. And this cavity, since it is confined along the grain boundary, we have the intergranular cavity forming. So, as opposed to the previous mechanism wherein the slip it led to the formation of intergranular cavity, wherein it is just the accumulation of stress and that was caused by the piling up of the dislocation that largely led to the formation of cavities. Here we have two mechanisms that plays a role. So one is the formation of wedges, the other is the grain boundary sliding. So the combination of these two leads to the formation of intergranular cavity. So it is just this combination of these two that leads to the intergranular cavity. The formation of wedge, that is due to the accumulation of stresses caused by the piling up of the dislocation. Even though the wedge relaxes the accumulated stress, it is the wedge that is resulting from the piling up of the dislocation and the subsequent grain boundary sliding that leads to the formation of intergranular cavity in this mechanism of grain boundary wedges based formation. So in the slip band based formation, it is the direct role of the accumulated stress. Here it is the combination of the wedge and the grain boundary sliding. So in addition to these two mechanisms, or rather three mechanisms, one involving, so we saw three mechanisms, one involving densities of vacancies, the other involving stress accumulation due to the piling up of the dislocation, the other involving the wedge formation, that is, or the grain boundary wedge formation. So this formation along with grain boundary sliding. So these are the three mechanisms that we saw are responsible for the formation of intergranular or the cavities along the grain boundaries. So the other mechanism involves triple junction wedging. So this triple junction wedging, as the name suggests, is confined to a particular microstructural feature. It is not confined to the overall grain boundaries, but it is confined to a particular microstructural feature, that is the triple junction. So if you consider a triple junction something like this, now the triple junction wedging introduces a cavity along this region. So in this region, it will introduce a cavity. And this is referred to as the triple junction wedge, and this is one of the cavities that coalesce and forms the crack along the grain boundaries. Now let us see what are the factors that govern the formation of triple junction wedging. Now this triple junction wedging can be formed in two ways. So the first one involves localized rupture. The triple junction wedging can be formed because of two phenomena. The one of the phenomena is localized rupture. So the localized rupture is nothing but the brittle failure that occurs in the triple junction. So you have a brittle failure that occurs in this localized region or the triple junction. The reason we call it as a brittle failure, because if you could recollect, during the creep behavior or at high temperature, the grain boundaries, they act as a Newtonian viscous material or Newtonian viscous fluid. So the amount of this Newtonian viscous fluid at the triple junction is considerably high, or this Newtonian viscous material is rather accumulated in this triple junction when compared to all the other regions along the grain boundaries. So you have in the triple junctions three grain boundaries that are meeting, and at that point you have a sufficient amount of gathering of this amorphous material, this viscous material or Newtonian viscous material, and this Newtonian viscous material under tensile loading, instead of deforming, it gives in and it ruptures as a brittle material. This rupturing as a brittle material by this viscous region, or by this Newtonian viscous region, that is the triple junction, leads to the formation of triple junction wedging, leads to the formation of the cavities at this triple junction. So this is one of the reasons for the formation of cavities along the triple junction. So in the triple junction, where the amount of Newtonian viscous material is concentrated when compared to the grain boundaries at high temperature, and accompanied by the tensile loading condition. This triple junction, it gives in and breaks off like a brittle material, and this leads to the formation of the triple junction wedging. So this mechanism of formation of the triple junction wedging is called as the localized rupture mechanism. The other way wherein these triple junctions leads to the formation of cavities, particularly in the region along the grain boundary, is due to the formation or due to the accumulation of smaller amount of cavities. So this grain boundary wedging can be formed by the accumulation of cavities in this region. So when you consider the formation of cavities either by the three mechanisms that we have seen, the coalescence or its mobility is rather restricted by the triple point. Now, in order to grow and for the coalescence of the intergranular cavities, these cavities need to propagate, and the propagation of these cavities is impeded by the triple junction. So supposing you have two cavities here, and these cavities need to propagate and in order to coalesce and turn into the formation of cracks. However, since we have a triple junction here, this cavity that is propagating along this direction will not be able to move further, and therefore the possible direction of propagation for the cavities that are close to the triple junction is towards the triple junction, and thereby you ultimately end up having the formation of triple junction wedging. So the other mechanism that leads to the formation of triple junction wedging is the coalescence of cavities, and the cavities, they coalesce in this particular region of the polycrystalline material, because this triple junction, it acts or it impedes the propagation of the cavities. So the cavities which grow needs to propagate in order to coalesce, and when they are impeded by the triple junction, they tend to accumulate around the triple junction, and this leads to the formation of triple junction wedging. So this is one of the mechanism that leads to the intergranular failure of the material. Now what we have seen is, we have seen different mechanism that leads to the formation of intergranular cavity, and this mechanism here, in addition to leading to the formation of intergranular cavities because of the localized structure, this mechanism here also leads to the formation of intergranular failure of the material. So in addition to providing the precursor of the intergranular failure of the material through the formation of intergranular cavities, this mechanism, through the coalescence of the cavities, leads to the formation of cracks along the triple junction, which ultimately grows and lead to the failure or the intergranular failure of the material. So we have so far seen different mechanisms that are responsible for the formation of cavities along the grain boundaries, and one mechanism that, more than the formation of cavities, acts as the precursor for the overall failure of the material. So the first mechanism, it depends on the vacancy. The second mechanism is principally governed by the accumulation of stress leading to the pile-up of the dislocation. The third mechanism is caused by the formation of the grain boundary wedges and the subsequent grain boundary sliding that leads to the formation of cavities along the grain boundaries. Now the third mechanism is based on the triple junction. This triple junction, when you treat the triple junction as the accumulation of the highly viscous Newtonian material, this would rupture at high temperature, thereby leading to the formation of wedges. The other way these wedges or the cracks at the triple junction can be formed is through the coalescence of the cavities, as the triple junction acts as the obstacle for the existing cavities to propagate, and they coalesce around the triple junction. So these are the different ways or different mechanisms that govern the formation of cavities along the grain boundaries. So what so far we have seen is that these mechanisms or the operational mechanisms that ensure the failure of material is largely intergranular at high temperature when you compare it to the low or ambient temperature. Now it is important to note that all these mechanisms, these three mechanisms, and this mechanism, if you could look in closely, you would see, except for this mechanism here, the temperature plays a critical role in nucleating the cavities in all these four mechanisms. Here we have the role of density of vacancies, which is again dependent on temperature. Only when the temperature is high, you would have the influence of stress on the number of vacancies. Only when you have the influence of stress on the number of vacancies, you would have the accumulation of vacancies along a particular grain boundary, or increase in the density of vacancies along a particular grain boundary. So the role of temperature is quite considerably pronounced in this mechanism of formation of the cavities along the grain boundaries. And here we saw that in addition to the formation of grain boundary wedges, rather this should be ledges. Pardon me, it should be ledge. So in addition to the formation of the grain boundary ledges, which is observed even at the room temperature, the formation of grain boundary ledges alone will not lead you to the formation of the cavities. It is the combination of grain boundary ledges and the grain boundary sliding, the combination of these two phenomena, that leads to the formation of the cavities along the grain boundary. Now, in the absence of high temperature, you will not have any grain boundary sliding. So that means you will not be having the formation of cavities along the grain boundaries at ambient temperature when you focus exclusively on this mechanism. So this mechanism, the influence of temperature is by increasing the density of vacancies along a particular grain boundary. In this mechanism, the influence of temperature is by introducing grain boundary sliding. Except for grain boundary sliding, in this mechanism you won't be having formation of cavities along the grain boundaries. Now when you focus on this mechanism here, in this mechanism the role of temperature is felt by causing a localized brittle-like rupture in the triple junction. So the role of temperature in this mechanism is observed or is pronounced, or the effect of temperature in bringing about the grain boundary cavities through this mechanism is by causing a localized failure of the material in the triple junction. At low temperature or at high temperature, such a rupture will not be observed at the triple junction. And in addition to that, you need the diffusion, or you need a high temperature for the coalescence or the mobility of these vacancies, or these vacancies, or rather these cavities, to move along the grain boundaries. You need to have sufficient amount of temperature for these cavities to propagate along the grain boundaries. And only when you have propagation of cavities along the grain boundaries, they are impeded by the triple junction, and you would have the interaction of several cavities along the triple junction, and this would ultimately lead to the formation of triple junction wedges, and this ultimately lead to the formation of cracks. So what we have seen in four of these mechanisms, the temperature plays an explicit role in introducing cavities to or along the grain boundaries. The role of the temperature is to confine the cavities to the grain boundaries. Here we have seen that it confines by confining the vacancies to the grain boundary, here through the grain boundary sliding, and here by bringing about a localized rupture. So it is the role of the temperature. Of course, there is the stress that brings about the formation of cavities, but the role ensures the position of these cavities. The role or the temperature, the role of the temperature is to ensure the position of these cavities. The temperature ensures that the cavities are formed along the grain boundaries, not within the grains. It's the temperature that ensures that the failure of the material is intergranular rather than the intragranular. Now, when you focus apart from these three, and when you focus on the stress accumulation, here it is also important to note that we have increased accumulation of stress, or we have increased piling up of dislocation that ultimately leads to the accumulation of stress, which leads to the formation of cavities along the grain boundaries, is because the temperature has annihilated or rearranged the existing dislocations. So here in this mechanism of the stress accumulation leading to the formation of the cavities along the grain boundary, the role of temperature is by enhancing the plasticity. So by enhancing the elasticity, we have sufficient piling up of dislocation along the grain boundaries. This sufficient piling up leads to stress accumulation that leads to the formation or ultimately results in the formation of cavities along the grain boundaries. So only in the stress accumulation or only in the slip band based formation of cavities, the role of temperature is rather indirect. Apart from that, in all these three mechanisms, the role of temperature is direct, and it is this role of temperature that ensures that the failure at high temperature is largely intergranular rather than intragranular. So it is the temperature or the influence of the temperature that ensures that you have the formation of cavities along the grain boundaries, not within the grain. So this combination of stress and temperature, the stress which brings about the formation of the cavities that coalesce and leads to the formation of cracks, while the stress is largely responsible for the formation of cavities, it is the temperature that positions these cavities, or it's largely responsible for positioning these cavities along the grain boundaries through different mechanisms. So combination of these two is what is responsible for the intergranular failure of the material at high temperature. So with this, we will be, I would like to wind up the different mechanisms that is responsible for the intergranular failure of the material at high temperature. From the next lecture, we will be focusing on some more theoretical aspect, particularly from the thermodynamical aspect on the formation of the cavities along the grain boundaries. So far it has largely been some sort of a storytelling. We have not been considering the thermodynamical aspect. We have just been considering the material behavior that is responsible for the failure at high temperature. We have been considering largely or focusing largely or basing our discussion largely on the material behavior, the propagation of dislocation, the accumulation of stress, all those discussions, be it formation of grain boundary ledges or grain boundary sliding. So whatever we have been talking about, it is largely based on the behavior of the material. In the next lecture, we will consider the formation of cavities along the grain boundaries based on the thermodynamical aspect. We will focus on the theoretical aspects of the formation of cavities along the grain boundaries. Now here, before winding up this lecture, I just want to make one correction. So this is nothing but grain boundary ledges. This should be ledges. So ledge is nothing but a step. So this is the grain boundary ledges. Pardon me for this verbal mistake here. So it's not wedges, it is ledges. The wedges comes into play only in the triple junction. So you have the grain boundary ledges that are formed due to the accumulation of dislocation. It is a step, and this step is referred to as the grain boundary ledges. So in the next lecture, we will continue with this discussion on the formation of cavities along the grain boundaries, but from a theoretical standpoint. So let's see ourselves in the next lecture. Goodbye.